What's up, everyone? I'm Josh Pinker, and welcome to the very first episode of Let's Get Animated. In this episode, we're going to be covering the basics of getting set up with Toon Boom Harmony and how to draw properly in the program. In this video, I'm going to be working off of my brand new Wacom One Touch 13-inch display. Shout out to Wacom for sending me this so I can use it during my videos, and also a huge shout out to Wacom for sponsoring all my videos moving forward. I'm super excited to get started, so let's dive in. So let's start off all the way from the beginning. You know, this is the first video of this series, and I just want to make sure that moving forward we're all on the same page. So yeah, so first thing is going to happen, you're going to have this pop-up window. So this is our starting screen. So for this, at the top here, name, this is where you can create a brand new scene. So I'm gonna put a name like just test video, something like that. Location, where you want to save this animation file. You could hit browse, just select wherever you want. I'm just gonna save it right to the desktop, and that is where the entire Harmony folder is going to be saved to for this project. So this is pretty much the standard for creating animation, keeping it the right size that you need. If you are working in a previous scene, the files would turn up over here, and then you can click on it and then it'll just open up that file. But since we're just starting new, we'll just do this. So we have this, and I'm just gonna click create scene. So we open up Toon Boom Harmony, and this is the first thing we see. We see all these screens, we see all these buttons, and it can be very daunting and just very overwhelming. The really nice thing about Toon Boom Harmony is you can customize everything you see so that it works the way you want to work. So what we're going to do is first we're going to set up our workspace. So the workspace is just everything we see in front of us, our tools, where everything is located. This is the default. You can see right here, it says default as soon as we open. And also depending on the screen size that you have, you really want to utilize the amount of screen size you have so that you're not working too small and everything's working nicely and you can see everything. We have our toolbar right here on the side. Whenever you see this gray bar here, these can all be moved around, and I'm going to show you right here. So this bar right here, I'm just going to click here. I'm just going to drag this out, and now you can see I have the whole toolbar. So right here, it was on the side, making my timeline smaller, my stage smaller. So I'm just going to click that and put it to the top here. So now we just gained a little bit more real estate on the side here. So moving it to the top there. Now let's see things here. Like I got my new, open, save, undo, cut layer. I could just go up here and do file, save, edit, undo, redo. So I don't really need another button here where I just have that already off screen. So in the gray area here, I'm just going to right click, and then we'll see all the things that aren't even on screen but that are available to us. And don't worry if you don't see this like CSI thing. I have like extra things that I downloaded to be in my program. So these are all the options that we have of things that we want to see. So we could see right here, file and edit. So this is the file right here. This is the edit. So I don't really need to see these things. So I'm just going to click, and we could see the file already went away. go back to my right click. I'm gonna unclick the edit. That's gonna go away. And I think everything else we want to see. So we have that. This stuff too. Let's see here. What else can we hide? Okay, so we have our workspace. So this is where we see everything. And we have our timeline down here. And over here, so we have two panels going on here. So we have the tool properties, library, color, node view. So it's kind of split up. So I don't really like it when it's split up because you could see like it's getting cut off here, it's getting cut off here. I just want to utilize this whole area to just work all together. So we have tabs here, we have tabs here, and then you have a plus button to add more tabs and an X button to close tabs. So I'm going to the color, I'm going to close that. So I'm going to hit my X button, boop, got rid of that. Node view, I don't want to see you down here, get rid of that. So now, automatically, boom, we got our whole tool properties here, and we can see everything. If I go to library, I could see everything because now it's not a split screen. So now I'm just looking at 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So we have that going. I want to, though, bring those back and bring them back over here. So we have tool properties, library. I'm going to hit the plus button. Let's see what I want. I definitely want my color. So I'm going to click that. So now I have tool properties, library, color, drawing substitutions. I want to see that. We got a lot of bars here that I feel like we don't need. So I'm going to right click. And before, when we right clicked here, we were clicking the checks to turn things on, turn things off. I'm going to here, so I'm just going to right click. So I'm only affecting the bars here. If I right click up here, it's going to turn things on here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to customize. So now we could see in the customize, these are the things that are right here, and I don't want to see these at all. So instead of turning them on, turning them off, I'm just going to select all of these, and I'm just going to put it back to the library. So all these are like all the tools that you can put up there. I don't want any tools there. So I'm just going to return these, remove the selected tools from the toolbar. So I'm just going to keep the lock button because you need at least one thing. So I'm going to hit apply. So it's there. Okay. And then I'm going to drag this and I'm just going to put it down here. Master control. I'm going to turn master control off. Unclick tool presets. Just get rid of that. Have my lock button up here. So now you can see already, even with the tool presets, we get this whole gray bar going on here. And then I'm going to unclick that. Now we get even more room to work with. So now we can fully see our stage even more. We can fully see our tool properties, our library, our color, drawing substitution. And I think up here, I just want to turn on display. And we can see again, see how I turned on display and I'm going to turn it back off. So I'm just right clicking, doing display, and it just pops it right in the middle. So we got all this empty space here. So I'm just going to click and I'm just going to drag it right up here. So we have display. That's pretty much it that's how I like to work. The first thing I do, especially whenever you're working in a new version of Toon Boom and you download a new version, or maybe you're going to an animation studio and you're sitting for the first time, first thing you want to do is just customize the workspace so that you're maximizing the amount of room you have to work with depending on your screen size, and just getting rid of a lot of the buttons that you're never going to use. Now, what's really, really important is you don't want to do this every single time that you open up Toon Boom. That can be really annoying, really time consuming. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Windows, we're going to go to Workspace, and we're going to go Save Workspace As, because we're doing this for the first time. And now you can go in and I'm going to put Josh's Happy Place. So I'm gonna put Josh's happy place and I'm gonna hit OK. Okay, so I saved my workspace and you could see right here it says Josh happy place if I do the drop down. So this was the default. They have other presets, hand-drawn, compositing, animating, scripting, and then the one I created. So now every time you open up Toon Boom, it's always gonna be whatever you saved it as. So this is your workspace. If you change something around again and you want to just save it back and make sure this change that you did saves, you'll just go to Windows, Workspace, and just save workspace, because the save as is the first time. Save workspace, that's when you made an adjustment. Just click save and it will keep everything in the same location. So now that we've completely modified our workspace, we have everything working the way we like. We have all the information and all our buttons in nice, easy spots to access. The next thing is the settings. So we finished the workspace. Now we want to worry about the settings of Toon Boom. So whenever you open Toon Boom for the first time, the settings are not always the best. They're pretty standard. So if we go to file, so for me, I think it's if you're on Windows, it would be an edit. For me, I just have to go here. I'm working on a Mac, so just either, I think it's an edit if you're on Windows. So for me, just looking for the preferences button. So when you open up the preferences for Toon Boom, this gives you kind of everything that's happening in the background of the program. So we got our general, the camera settings, the node view, exposure, drawing, timeline, template. So depending on how you're working and what's really needed, you would have to go through all of these tabs and kind of, check your boxes and check this on, check this off. There's a lot of things turned off that is really helpful to help you work easier if it's turned on. So instead of wasting your time and doing a whole video where I'm like, okay, in general, click on this and then click on this. Now let's go to this next tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this right now. So I'm going to do save. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm just going to put Josh Toon Boom settings and I'm going to hit save. So now I just exported all of my settings, and these are all the settings that I recommend you having so that you're following along with me. All you have to do is in your preferences settings for Toon Boom. When you're at this screen, you can click load and download this file. I'm going to have the link below the video. Put it to your desktop or wherever. Click Josh Toon Boom settings. Click open, and everything in all the tabs will get checked, and it will be the same as my settings. And then you just hit OK, and then we're all done. So since this is the very first video, I wanted to focus on just drawing in the program. I know we want to get right into the animation, but you can't animate something if you don't even know how to draw. We're going to go up here and I'm going to select the paintbrush. So I selected the paintbrush and you'll notice that right away my tool properties change. And if I go right here in the middle of the bar, I'm just going to click this and I'm just going to drag this out so we can see a little bit more. And from the bottom here, I'm just going to drag this down a little bit. So we got the brush selected, tool properties pops up. So there are preset settings for the brush, and we also have different types of brushes. So you can see like the shapes are different, or maybe the textures are different. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to do my slider over here. So this changes the size of the brush. We could see the numbers changing here. If I draw, so we'll see, it's just kind of drawing the shapes. One thing I would recommend in addition is I'm going to right click here. I'm going to turn on pen settings. So I have that, and I'm going to set this to average. Yours might be stabilizer off. I'm going to set that to average. And that'll kind of help a little bit with the drawing. Just keeping it, getting that nice thick to thin kind of feel to it. And if I just select the cursor here, so my selection tool, I'm going to select that. I'm just going to go around, highlight everything, and just hit delete. So going back to here, we could see here's like a regular brush. Let's go to like something like this, hazy line. So I could go, so you could see, make this a bit thicker so we could see the difference. So it almost looks like kind of like chalky. So yeah, there's a lot of different brushes, airbrush marker. So a lot of cool designs to get the kind of look that you're going for when drawing. So it's fun to just kind of play around with. Going back to my selection, highlighting everything, and just hitting my delete button or backspace on your keyboard. So that is the paintbrush, and notice how, so I'm gonna go all the way back to solid brush. I'm gonna make this thick, and you could do two things. You can, well, actually you could do multiple things. So I can do my slider here for how big I want the thickness to be, slide it. I can just highlight, and I can put in like this has to be, 50 on the dot. So now it's that exact, so now every time I draw, I always know everything is the same thickness because it's the 50. Or you can hold down the letter O on your keyboard, and that will show the thickness. And I'm just holding down O, and I'm just going back and forth with my pen on the screen, and that can help me get the thickness of the brush that I want. And it'll be that, and then if I want it a little bit thinner, so you can do that. So you could either use the sliding bar, put in the exact number, or hold down O, and that will get you the size that you want. So I'm gonna highlight all this stuff again, delete. Okay, so that's the paintbrush. Another thing about the paintbrush, I'm gonna draw a shape, and we have the sub-selector tool. So I'm gonna click that, and I'm just gonna highlight all the way around. So you can see all these dots appear. So what are these dots? So these dots, I have them all selected. I'm just gonna click one. So this allows you to manipulate the shape of the paint, and you can make it thicker, you can make it skinnier, and you can just, whatever you drew, you can then go in and manipulate it. I'm using the hotkeys 1 to zoom out, 2 to zoom in, and spacebar to get the pan tool, and then clicking on the screen. So that's kind of the hotkeys: 1 to zoom out, 1 to zoom in, spacebar to hold. So we have that. So this allows you to drag. If I do something like this, I'm going to click on the point, and then we have these lines here and these little bluish green dots. These are called handles. So the handles, I can click this, and my pivot point will stay there, but now I can kind of manipulate and bend the lines with the handles to get the nice curve that I want, depending on what my drawing is. So I can use that and work with other handles on other points. If I want to get rid of a point, I can just select and delete, and now we just have a handle here and here. I'm going to click this one, delete. And now this allows us to get an even wider kind of curve and make the editing a little bit easier, because if it's multiple points, you kind of get small, very individual textures. This helps you just get nice bigger curves and transformations. So I'm going to, if I select it, get my selection tool and I click on the shape, it gives me my transformation bounding box. So I'm just selecting that. So before we were in the sub selection, this gives me all my dots. I'm going back to my selection tool, clicking that. If it's not selected, just circling it, highlighting, boop. And now I can rotate the shape. I can squash the shape down. I can skew it. I can do this. Whatever you want, pretty much, with this bounding box. Can move it around. Notice how the pivot point is right in the middle. So when I rotate, it rotates 360 degrees from that pivot point. If I go and move it down here, now it will move from that pivot point in that position. Same with, I move it all the way here, it's going to move from that pivot point. And you could just move it right back, or just unclick, click again, it's right back in the middle. So that is how you would just manipulate a shape that you drew with either the transformation bounding box or clicking and dragging around the shape. So I'm going to highlight, delete that. Now I'm going to go to my pencil tool. So I got my pencil tool, same kind of settings. I'm going to the maximum size. I'm going to drag this out. So this gives me a nice thick shape. But in addition, so on our brush, we just had the size. With the pencil tool, we have the size and we have the smoothing. So you'll notice that this line that I drew, the smoothing was only a 5. So if I go to my sub selection, click, you'll notice that the dots are in the middle of the line, which allows me to customize the shape of the overall line. I can't adjust the outline like I could with the brush tool. This allows me to only manipulate the entire shape of the line from the middle of the line. I can, however, so you can see it was a 5, so we have multiple dots here. And if I select it, and in my tool properties, I'm going to scroll down, maximum size, I'm going to drag this. So after I drew the line, I can increase the size or decrease the size. And I'm going to highlight, delete this, go back to my pencil. I'm going to move the smoothing to about 50. And then I'm going to draw, so you can see, even when I'm drawing, it kind of smooths out my curves. I'm going to go sub-selection, and you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it's very little amount of points, so it's easy to manipulate. If I had something like a 0, it's still smooth, but you can see it's a little jagged, and that's because it made all of these points. So now if I need to manipulate, it's very difficult because there's so many points and it's getting very rigidy. And so it's better to make a smoothing at like a 50. So then when you draw nice simple lines. So you're probably thinking, okay, that's drawing with black, but what if I want other colors and I don't just want to draw black? So it's kind of kind of like you have to work in steps. Like, what tool do you want to work with? I want to work with the brush. How thick do you want the brush? I want it to be this thick. Do a little test. That looks good. Command Z to undo. Now I'm going to go to the color tab And we already have these presets, black, white, red. I'm gonna click red, and we have red. I'm gonna click green, we have green. Gonna click blue, we have blue. So step 1, select the brush. Step 2, customize your properties, have the size that you want, have the brush that you want. Step 3, click on the color. And step 4, draw away. So, and it will always remember the steps. When you're selecting the brush, the tool properties is going to be affecting your brush. When I click over to color, everything that I put in the tool properties for the brush is still going to remain here, 63.6. If I click anywhere else, those settings don't go away. It still stays here. And then when I draw, it's all the settings that I have selected, no matter where I click off. I have to say, one of the coolest features about the Wacom One is the touch features and how easy it makes it to work in Toon Boom. And even though it's a very limited size and screen, I can easily go and just click and drag and move them around for where I'm working. And I can also just go and zoom in on the screen, or with 2 fingers pan around the screen. That is probably a really cool feature. And the fact that I could just go, select a tool, and I can just start drawing with my finger. It's really important that you remember to take breaks. We covered a lot of information so far, so I'm gonna take a break and I'll be right back. All right, so let's draw something really, really simple, okay? So I'm going to draw a hand. I'm gonna draw like a cartoony hand. So I'm gonna draw a very cartoony, simple hand. So we got our pinky. Got the ring finger. Middle finger, and pointer finger. Thinking about the perspective here, so I'm just gonna give like a little bump right here, and I'm gonna close this off here, and I want to have the thumb. And I want to do this. I'm going to have this line kind of going through for the palm. Maybe a little line right here. Maybe the other way. Okay, so there we go. We got our hand. If I click on my transform tool, highlight it, I'm just going to click, drag it up here. One thing I want to notice is that we have this black and it's like on this really gray screen that I don't really like. So what I'm going to do is in my layers over here, I'm going to hold down the plus button and I'm going to go to color card. So I have my color card selected, and this just basically changes the overall background color. And I don't want to select it. I don't want to select the color card, so I'm just going to lock that so that that doesn't get messed with, and I'm just working with just the drawing. So just hitting this little lock button right here, that will lock the layer. Whenever you're drawing, I always recommend using your brush tool to draw the shape. And think of this as, this is like your doodle. This is just like you're roughing things out, you know, you're kind of figuring out like what's the shape and how does it work. Like I kind of just drew straight in, but think like really rough and use this, the paintbrush, because it's just so simple to use. So use that to like rough out what your idea is. And once you're happy with that, now we're going to go into cleaning it up. So we're in the camera view, and the camera view is just showing us, you know, if this was a full file, we would have our background, our character, props, and everything. Since we're just focusing on the drawing, I drew it in the camera view just so I know where it is in the scene. I'm going to go to the next tab, and I'm going to go to drawing. So now, whenever we're in drawing, we're only going to see the isolated drawing. If we were in camera, if we had layers here of background, character, everything would appear. Clicking on the drawing, we're only focusing on just the drawing, and we're getting rid of the noise of everything else. So we have our drawing here, and now I want to talk about these over here. So if you think about, you know, if you're coming from Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, if you're coming from programs like that, so we have our layer here. This is our one layer, and it's drawing. And I'm going to double click on this, and now I can rename it, and I'm just going to name this hand, and then I'm just going to hit enter. So now we know this layer is for the hand. And if I click these little eyeballs, that turns it, if I'm in the camera, that'll turn it off, they'll turn it on. So it just kind of disables it so I don't see it, and now I see it. One thing that Toon Boom does that's super, super helpful when it comes to drawing is they have sub-layers. So if you're coming from a program like Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, you know you have your layers, and let's say one layer would be the outline, and then you would create a second layer, and that would be the color, and then you would do a third layer for this, a fourth layer for this, and then you would have all these layers that you have to group together or whatever, however you like to work. With Toon Boom, I have my one layer of the hand, and then I have my sub-layers over here. So this allows me to have an overlay, a line art, color art, and underlay. U for underlay, C for color, L for line, O for overlay. And whenever I select it, it will only show me that level. So on this level of the line art, we have my hand. If I go to the overlay, I didn't draw anything there, so it's blank. If I want to see everything together, I can turn on this eyeball, and then it'll show me all the layers. So I'm going to show you my steps for drawing and cleaning up and doing color and all those things. So we already drew our hand on the line art. That's great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the selection tool. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to do Command C to copy, and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go to my underlay, and I'm going to do Command V, back in. So now my underlay, I have my hand, color nothing, line art nothing, overlay. So the underlay is where we have our rough, drawing of our hand used with the paintbrush tool. Now I'm going to go to my line art, and I'm going to turn on the eyeball. So now I see all the layers. I'm on the line art, which has nothing, but I'm seeing the underlay because I have that eyeball turned on. When it comes to cleaning up your drawings, I highly recommend using the pencil tool. So the brush tool, use it for sketching out your doodles, doing rough sketches. Use the pencil tool for your final cleanup because it's easier to edit and it's a lot easier to work with for coloring and just outlining. I'm going to zoom in here. I want to make sure that my pencil, like it's super big. I want to make sure that it is the same size. So I'm going to hold down O, and I'm going to make sure that my circle kind of gets to the same thickness of the line, so that's good. I want to make sure I'm just going to drag this out a little bit. I'm going to make sure my smoothing, I'm going to set this to 50-ish. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to scroll down here, and there's a few settings that I recommend having turned on. Number one is this hammer line building mode. In this mode, strokes drawn in small increments will be merged into a single stroke. Highly recommend have this turned on. This button, the auto flatten, merges the strokes. And this one, auto close gap, automatically close strokes. I'm gonna have that on. So those two. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, those turned on. And I'm going to go to my color here, and I'm going to do black so we can see the difference. Now that I have all my settings done for my pencil, we got the color, we got the size set, we got the smoothing. Now we're going to go in and do the outline and final draft of this hand. So I'm going to zoom in here and start drawing. One thing I love is having, that nice like thick to thin based on the pressure sensitivity on the screen. So utilizing that, and that's something I didn't get with working with the brush tool, but I'm going to get it with working with the pencil tool. So going in here and just going around and letting the program help me out with smoothing my lines, making me look like I'm a way better drawer than I really am. So I got that first outline, so I'm really happy with that. Now here's the next thing that I really want you to do when it comes to drawing. So with my paintbrush, that was just my rough drawing, and I was just, getting the shape down and things like that. When it comes to outlining, I want you to do this. I want you to see how the line connects here? Don't do this. Don't go right up here and then start drawing. Do this. Go over the lines. So I'm going to go like this, up and over. And I'm going to go down, and I'm going to do this again. Up and over. Up and over. So you're overcompensating, going way over. And even if I'm drawing past the screen here, if I click my pan tool, it still kept drawing. It doesn't stop right here. I'm just kind of going and drawing over. It still works. So we have that. I'm gonna do it again. I'm just gonna get the selection, subselection. We're on the line art. I'm gonna click. I'm just gonna drag this down. I'm gonna drag this down to there. So we got that. And do the same thing. Draw this line. Going straight across. And now for my thumb. Get nice around here. And connect. Cool. Oh, and can't forget our little squiggly line right here. So there we go. Got all that going. Okay, so we have our hand, and doesn't look too great, but we have it fully traced exactly the way we want it based off of our rough. So now that I don't really need to see the red outline anymore of the doodle that I did, so I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to hit that eyeball. So before the eyeball, it shows me all the layers. So I'm going to turn off that eyeball. So now we see just the underlay. I want to see just the line art. So the reason why I told you to overcompensate with drawing the lines is because this will fully close the shape and it will make it easier for coloring in later. So to get rid of these lines, instead of, getting our paintbrush tool and just going little by little, getting it close, what we could do is I'm going to hold down on the selection and I'm going to go down to cutter. And now with the cutter, I'm just going to go in and I'm not pressing anything. I'm just holding down, slicing straight through. So I'm just clicking dragging across, and it cuts. And it's the most satisfying thing ever. Cut, 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 cut. Now we have the full outline of our hand. And you'll notice now that when I go here, you could see the line, they're fully connected. So see how I drag this and this top line goes? Or same thing here. The lines are fully connected together. So the reason why we did that, I'm going to erase some of this. Okay, so let me just refix this drawing here. So that's fixed. So let's say instead of overcompensating and drawing like this, let's say I go right to like here and I do that. So you can look at it and you'll say, well, the black is touching the black, so it must be connected. But then if I go in my subselection and I click, this right here, this is a gap between the lines. So if I move this out, it's not connected. Even though the colors are touching, it's not connecting. And this is its own thing, and that's its own thing. So now, because of that, it's going to be a huge gap, so it won't fill in the color. The color won't fill in properly. So that is why we don't do that. And we always stick to having our lines perfectly connected. So that's the reason why I asked you to do that. Now we're going to move on to the color. So first I'm going to go to color. So I want to do this like, you know, kind of a beige hand, kind of tan color. So we'll notice we only have these colors, so I need to add an additional color that I want to use. So I'm going to go to the plus button, and that created a new color. Let me move this out so it's clear. So now we have black and it says new. So if I double click on new 0, that allows me to change the name. So I'm going to change the name to skin tone. And we could see if I select skin tone, go my brush, it's just black. If I double click on the black square, I get a color wheel come up. And it's always selected on the R. I'm going to go to the H, and this gives me like the hue and saturation, and it also gives me more selection of colors to work with. So I'm going to go over here, kind of in this range, and maybe a little bit more orangey. So something like this feels like a nice beige skin tone. So I'm happy with that. And I'm going to exit out, and we'll see that the tone of the color changed. So now it's that color for the skin tone, and it's set. So the initial thought is I have my paintbrush, I'm ready to paint my hand. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna start coloring the hand. And you notice that it goes over the line and now it looks really crummy. And you're probably thinking, okay, I just have to be laser focused and I just have to match in perfectly with the line. But again, it's still gonna look jaggedy and not very clean. Well, we can have the brush selected, tool properties, and we could have this selected, draw behind. So I'm going to click that. Now, when I draw, it goes behind the line. So now I don't have to worry about getting super close because it'll just fill in perfectly. However, with doing that and doing it like this and just going, when I go to my subselection, you're going to see a million points. Now, if I wanted to adjust this line, it's going to be very difficult because now I'm adjusting this line and now I have all these millions of points to go in and I have to move these points to adjust. So I don't recommend that. And also, we did everything on the line art layer, which we don't want. We want to separate. utilizing our sublayers. So let me undo. So let me get rid of all that I did. So we can click on our brush, we'll click on our color, and I can't see the hand. I don't know where I should be drawing. I'm gonna click on my eyeball. So now I could see the underlay, the color, line art. So I'm on the color. Now I can go and start painting, and now it's separated, but even though we're on the color layer, we're still having the issue where when it's turned on, we have this, but then we're gonna have all these dots and all these points because of the way we're coloring and drawing. So I still don't recommend just on the color art going with the brush and painting in like this. So I wanted to go through first just all the things like don't do this, don't do this. So let's back up, get rid of all this again. What I recommend is instead we have this perfect outline for this hand, right, that we drew. I'm gonna go here, go to my selection tool, just gonna highlight it. I'm going to, in the tool properties, this button right here, create color art from line art. I'm going to, and you can see on the color, we have nothing. I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna hit this button, and now you're probably like, okay, I don't see anything, what happened? I'm going to go to the color sublayer, and now we have a perfect outline of the hand that we drew. So it's nice and clear, the shape. I'm gonna go to my color, I have the skin tone selected. I'm gonna go to the paint bucket tool, and now I'm just gonna click and it automatically fills in the shape. And because these two fingers are closed off, so it's closed here, I'm just gonna click here, does that finger, click there, does that finger. So because of the way we drew the outline, it's very, very simple to fill in the colors because there's no gaps in the drawing. And because we have such a nice clean drawing on the line art, we can bring that information down to the next level and I can easily fill in the color. And you'll notice now when I select the color, the outline, it's very, very simple to work with and manageable with the amount of pivot points and dots that we have. Okay, so I'm gonna go, so now I'm gonna go back to the underlay. I'm gonna highlight this, we don't need this anymore, so get rid of that. I'm gonna go back to camera, so now we have these 2 points. I'm gonna go tool properties. So let's say I'm on line art. I'm gonna click, you see all the dots. I'm gonna move this out so only the line art is being affected because we're on that layer, and I'm selecting and I'm moving that out, and the color, nothing's happening to the color. Undo. I'm gonna go color sublayer. I'm gonna select, and now all this can be affected, but the line art won't move with it. Let's say you want to have both the line art and the color art move together. In the tool properties, you're going to select this button, apply to line and color art. So if I have that selected, now when I select a pivot point and I drag, the line and the color moves together. And this works the same with the eraser tool. I'm gonna select the eraser tool. The eraser tool works pretty much the same as the paintbrush. You know, you can set your size, you can hold down O and get the size that you want. And we could see right here, so the eraser tool selected, we have the size that we want. And if I don't have this turned on, if I erase, only the color goes away because we're on the color art. If I go to the line art, erase, only the line and the color stayed where it is, but only the line went away. If I select this button, apply to line and color art, both the line and the color gets erased. So that's how you would manipulate, after you drew, you would manipulate the line art or the color art, affecting things and just moving things around. This system is really, really helpful when it comes to animation, because you want to make sure the drawings that you're animating are done properly, so you can easily manipulate the drawings and you can make any adjustments and have it work properly with animation. So I highly recommend following these steps when it comes to drawing anything, and using the sub layers to help out with separating details from the line and the color. The next thing I want to talk about is the line editor. So we drew this line here and we're using the pressure sensitivity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to pencil editor. And now with the pencil editor selected, I want to be on the line art. I'm going to select a line that you drew. And now I'm going to zoom in. With here, it allows me to easily bring in the line. I'm going to delete some of these points. And it allows me to easily get a better thick to thin on the whole line. And I can use this to kind of bend the line out. But it allows me to just bring the thickness and the point of the line in more. So it helps me get more of that thick to thin. So you can see the difference here, this big line. So I'm going to do it here too. I'm going to get rid of a lot of these points so it's easier to work with. I'm just going to drag this in. And now drag this in a little bit too. And I could see overall difference. And this is great, you know, just getting that style that you like to work in. I'm going to do it for this line too. And just keep playing around with the lines, getting that nice thick to thin look and feel. It definitely makes your drawings look a little bit more organic. And whatever you couldn't achieve with the pressure sensitivity, Harmony makes it super easy to just go back in and just change things and just make your drawings look better. You know, there's this helps take away the pressure that every single line you put on the screen has to be perfect. It doesn't. You know, there's a lot of tools to help you just get your drawing out there, and then use all the bells and whistles of the tools that the program has to offer in order to make your drawing look even better and even cleaner and more dynamic and more sophisticated. So there you go. So now we have our hand. So we have the outline, we have, you know, we modified some of the points. Now we have a nice simple hand that I can make smaller, make bigger, could skew it, make it a little bit fatter, make it a little bit longer. You can adjust it however you like. The very, very last thing that I want to talk about, again, using the colors. So we created our new skin tone here, and we use that to paint the color of the hand. So now let's say you want to change this color. You want the hand to be some different color. You're probably thinking, okay, I probably have to make a new color, and I have to click, and I want it to be like this pink, and I'm going to go to the color, and I'm going to fill it in, and I'm going to do it like that. that is a very, very long process, and I'm happy to say that you do not have to do that. So I'm going to undo. Whenever you create a brand new color in your palette here, and then you use that color, anytime that color is used in the scene, it is linked directly to the color that you created. So what that means is if I colored it already and I'm going to double click on it, I'm going to move this to the side, I'm going to change the color, and you will see that on the screen in real time, the colors change within the stage of the drawing that you did. So this is really helpful if, let's say, you drew a little boy with a red shirt and you're working on the file and you're doing all this animation and working hours on it and you have all these keyframes and everything, and then you're like, oh man, the boy shouldn't be in a red shirt anymore. He needs to be in a blue shirt. I have to go back and every single frame I have to recolor in the red shirt to be blue. Not the case. You just go to the layer, change the color, and throughout the entire file, anytime that color was used, it will get changed immediately. So that's a really cool feature and just makes things a lot easier. In addition, let's do something else. So I just want to go back. I'm going to make a new color. If I wanted it to have an alpha, so I'm going to go, let's do something like here. Let's say I want it to be a little bit more see-through. I would change the alpha. So I would have this go down. I'm going to select it. And now I'm going to fill it in. And it's going to be, the opacity is going to be more see-through. And you could tell if I do this. I'm going to like draw behind. So you could see the difference here of how it's really bright red here and not so bright. That's because the color is a lot more see-through. The opacity is see-through of the color. So that's how you do it. And then if I was to change the alpha, you could see the red goes away. And now it's like a fully colored in and very translucent. So that's how you do that. Another thing is gradient. So I'm going to make another color. And every time we select a color, it's always a solid. Alpha is all the way. If I click here, gradient, so this allows me to get multiple colors. So I'm going to select here, and I'm just going to move it to like a pink or something. And now it's going to go from this blue to this purple. And we can see here, it's linear. So it's going to be like that. And now when I paint in on the color layer, so now we'll see the blue going into the purple. So we have a gradient. If I didn't want it going left to right and I want it more circular, I'm going to click radial. And I can adjust these for like how much the blue shows up. If I click another dot here, this allows me to change to another color. So now I'll have a third color going on. I'm going to make it something like a red. So now we got this. Now if I go click in, so now it starts in the middle and goes out and following. So that's how you go from a solid color to having a gradient, linear or radial, or just a solid color, but maybe it's also alpha. Everything is linked, and you could just have so much fun playing around, messing with colors. Another thing, last thing is, so we drew our outline of the hand, and we drew this with the black. If I highlight the outline and I click on another color, it will change the outline to that color that I'm selecting. So you don't have to, oh, I drew this, but it was the wrong color. I want to do it with this color. You don't have to select that color and redraw. You can just highlight it and automatically select the color that you want it to be. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the first video of Let's Get Animated. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, follow me on social at ThatKidPinker or at YAJ_book, and just keep following along, and I can't wait to come out with the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.